Hi everybody, Jill from Thurso Grows, coming to you from the polytunnel today. Give you a wee wave. Potatoes we're talking about today. I promised last week that we would talk potatoes for the little WhatsApp group. So some of you are growing tomatoes and some of you are growing potatoes. So here's the potato week, okay? So what can we tell you about potatoes? This is the second cut, by the way. There was far too much cockerel noise going on in the background in the first one. Potatoes, yeah. Certified seed potatoes, mostly British certified seed potatoes that we see available to us to grow, and actually mostly grown and packed in Scotland. So they actually come from Scotland most of the time. I always think that's quite funny, getting potatoes from Sutton's or something and they're sent all the way back up here. What do we get? We get earlies, we get second earlies, and we get main crops. And that really just depends on the amount of time that potato needs to actually develop. So for example, early potatoes are usually around about 90 days, and if we have a wee quick look down here, you'll see a little bit of flower coming on these are earlies. So yeah, you would kind of harvest them about now, so these ones are actually not too far away from being harvested, whereas your later main crops, for example, you do allow them to flower, and you can actually leave them in the ground until you want to use them. So that's really just the difference. They just need a wee bit more time. To chit or not to chit, this is the question. There are people who want to chit their potatoes and do, and there are people who don't agree with it and say you shouldn't chit them, so it's entirely up to yourself whether you want to chit your potatoes or not. I guess all it does at the end of the day is gets your crop going just a little bit quicker if you do decide to chit. But I know, and I don't fully understand this myself yet, I know there are advantages to be had on the other side with regards to health and disease if you don't chit. So that's a discussion we would have to have at another time. So I don't fully understand how that works out either, but never mind. If you are going to chit, you want to keep them somewhere light, not in direct sunlight, but definitely frost free. Okay, so we know that much. We also know that potatoes don't like cold, wet soil. So, if you are considering planting out your potatoes in the spring, and I know particularly down south there's a lot of people being caught out this year because of the sharp frosts that they had, there is a lady called Joy Larkham. She writes books. She's very knowledgeable. She was recommended to me by Sharon, who's also equally knowledgeable. But in Joy Larkham's book, she says that you shouldn't actually put out your potatoes or plant them out until the temperature's above 6 degrees, and you've had that plus 6 degrees for 3 days. Maybe not in Scotland. We know that Scotland can be very, very fickle for spring weather, so that might not always be possible, but that's a sort of general rule of thumb, if you like. Okay, so what else do we know? We know that you can grow them sort of in a traditional sort of field type in the old furrows, as we've all used to seeing as kids and going tatty howkin. We also know that you can grow them in containers, so I've got some in bags here as well. Okay, if you are growing, this one here's container, if you are growing potatoes in containers, then just be aware that you will get a smaller yield from them. You'll not get the same amount of quantity from them. The other thing you need to do with them as well is you will need to give them a little bit of a feed. Okay, so be a little bit careful with this. Yes, we know that we need nitrogen for these potatoes and things to grow, but don't go overkill on the nitrogen, okay? Because all that happens is you end up with a lot of very rapid top growth, very leafy and rapid top growth, and all that means is that it's very, very soft, and it's also then much more prone to disease and pest, okay? So when we want to feed our container potatoes, we should be thinking again along the lines more of a seaweed liquid feed with that high potash content, or a proprietary tomato feed again, okay? But don't go nuts on the nitrogen. Otherwise you do just leave them vulnerable with all that leafy top growth, okay? So watch that. You need to be careful with your drainage as well. So potatoes do need water. I'm not saying they don't. They do need water. They just don't like cold, wet conditions all the time. So if you've got them in a bag that's not draining very well, then they will just rot. Okay, so you just want to watch. Ones that are quite good for containers, varieties that are quite good for containers, so maybe if we're thinking about for next year, Charlotte and Duke of York, Maris Pier, Rocket, Swift, those ones are all quite good for container tatties, okay? What else do we need to talk about? Oh, I've lost the plot. Crop rotation. Yeah, crop rotation. So, crop rotation, well, what's that then? Basically, rotating the crops round between your beds. So, this year, this is a root bed. This year, this is supposed to be a brassica bed, although I've got some lettuce in there at the moment, but I will be getting more stuff put in there. So yeah, rotating your crops round and not growing the same thing in the same plot year after year after year, because potatoes are very prone to a condition called blight, and also very prone to what's known as eelworms. Okay, and those little critters are very, very persistent, very difficult to get rid of. Potato blight, yeah, it's much more prevalent, it's much more obvious and much more common, I guess, in main crop potatoes. What is that? It's basically when you get warm, wet weather, so sort of from July, August, September time, with temperatures consistently above plus 10 degrees, and then we get rain for 48 hours. Those are absolutely ideal conditions for potato blight. So that's one of the reasons why you want to crop rotate as well, because those spores from the Phytophthora that causes it goes down and live in the soil, and then it will just reinfect your potatoes again and again and again if you're using the same piece of ground. That is also true for eelworm. They just go down and they live in little cysts under the ground, and they'll reappear and reappear, and they're absolutely impossible to just about get rid of. So crop rotation is a good thing to do. Okay, you can actually get what's known as Blight Watch. There's a website called Blight Watch, and it will tell you the times, what are known as Smith's periods. And these Smith's periods are the times where the temperature is above 10 and we've had rain for 48 hours, and that's what they're known as. Now the other thing just to watch here, I've got some younger potatoes out here. These are my main crops. Some of these are coming through. So the other thing that we all need to think about, and you hear all the time about people earthing up, okay? So why are we earthing up? Well, number one, we can be earthing up to help protect them from frost, but more importantly, we're earthing up to protect the developing tubers which are just below the surface, okay? It's really, really easy to do. So these ones aren't particularly big. You can see there's not an awful lot of growth through yet, but all I'm just going to do is take the soil from around the edges. If I just refocus in a wee touch there, and literally just pile the earth up round about, take it from the sides and just pop it up round about them. And all that you're doing is then protecting those little tubers underneath. And don't worry if you get soil on top of the foliage, so your leaves, yeah, because that will always push through. Okay, so again, just take the soil, earth up. This is not the best bed, not helped by the fact I've got a cat that keeps coming in here and digging it out half the time. Okay, so that's all we're doing. And just piling that earth up. And what you should end up with when you've got a row of potatoes is you should actually start to see a nice little furrow developing along your line of potatoes, and you just keep earthing up. Some people earth up more than once, other people just earth up once and that's it. But that's all it means, and that's what you're doing. Okay, hope that was useful. Speak to you soon. Might do a bit on nettle fertiliser next week. Bye.